Okay, I just want to take you through another short discussion we're going to have. We'll keep this very short. We're familiar with the old paper and pencil, large halls, of paper and pencil exams. That is actually a simulation body. They're not a real body. But there's a variety of simulations where we can put people into situations where that might simulate what they're going to have to do in the work environment. We can see what they can show that they can do. More technology and more simulation. We've got Second Life, where you can put people into real life as you can get without being in the real environment, and ask various questions along the way. We've got scenario-based learning using technology, virtual worlds. So there's a whole different range of technologies that you can use. We can actually assess them with real people in the workplace. That's probably the epitome, is getting out to the workplace and finding out what they really do in the real workplace, and do they actually demonstrate the skills you see in the classroom. So we've got old and new. The old assessment, we've got the new coming in. What I want you to talk at your table about, and there is a sheet in your packs if you wish to use it, but you may not have a lot of time to fill it all out. We've got some principles down the bottom to the left-hand side of that sheet are principles that David Bowd in his work, Assessment 2020. You've also got that handout in your folders. You might like to make some notes, but if you look at some of the principles that he suggests for assessment, think about, in the short time that we've got, let's think about what's different. Is there any difference? Are the principles of basic assessment the same no matter what you use, or does the use of technology bring new principles in that we should all know as a principle that underpins good practice? So can you talk about at your tables for a few minutes, have a look at some of David Bowd's principles and think, well, does that apply to technology-based assessment as well? Or is this something new? Is this something new that we've never had to bother about with our old assessments? Okay, just a few minutes to have a chat about the old and the new principles. Are they the same? Are they different? How are they different? Yes. I know you've only had a short time to chat, but can I hear from any tables that want to volunteer? What were some of the new principles? Did anyone find principles that would be new, apart from some of the ones that we know that are good principles of assessment now? Yes. Diversity in the methodology of the assessment? Oh, allowing for diversity in your student cohort. Great suggestion. Any other ideas? Yep.
Interactivity with the media debriefing posts traction to what you're actually doing.
So both interacting more through the assessment process and then so capturing it with technology and then having that to go back through and debrief. Great idea. Anybody else? No?
On behalf of my reluctant table members, probably that the new world is much more about small formative assessment that's integrated in the whole learning process instead of being just at the end of a particular learning process.
Large summative assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The concept of learning as assessment.
Yeah.
So it's not, that was what we were talking about, that combination of separation. Previously it was separation, learning, assessment. Now it's the assessment is part of that learning process.
Yeah. I've always looked at, I agree, most people have looked at learning assessment. Personally, I tend to look at it more of a continuum, where, as soon as you start asking students questions in a lecture, that's your start of your formative assessment. So there's very rarely are times when we only teach or only assess. Down here, any other tables want to make a comment? Okay, thank you. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to explain some new developments within the university which may interest you. I'll just go through this slide because you've got that. We have established an e-assessment working party who reports to the Learning and Teaching Committee, chaired by Professor Shoemaker. The membership is there. We've got a number of people in this room on that working party, and always welcome to suggest new members if you wish. But I wanted to go through this, and this is our framework, how we looked at e-assessment and what e-assessment was and how we should think about it. And I just wanted to walk you through it. The e-assessment part is the box in the middle. Down the bottom we've got enablers, which are the technologies, the IT systems, and the training and the professional learning that supports the whole venture. So we have a series of enablers down the bottom that you can't run e-assessment without. You need the technology, you need the technology support, you need the training, you need all of those things to make it work. And up the top is we all live within an institutional, a professional and a national context where there's certain policies, procedures or accreditation requirements that we all have to meet. And that impacts on how we do our e-assessment. But e-assessment to us kind of fitted in the centre here. And we often, the first thing that you think about, which just happens to be the smallest box and it wasn't meant to be like that, is the assessment method. Is it a second life? Is it this? Is it that? Is it whatever? The important thing to us, I'll go through it. Hang on, I'll get to that in a minute. We looked at principles of assessment generally. You know, we thought authentic, which you thought of. We came up with reliable assessment programs, and I'm talking about a whole assessment program has to have reliability, so your final decision based on that program needs to have some reliability behind it, but not necessarily every item within that program. Depends how you add those up. It needs to be valid, that we assess the right things, that we're not confounding our assessment with writing it in language that the students don't understand, where you're trying to test something other than language skills. Alignment, it's still really important that we align our learning outcomes, our learning activities and our assessment. And that's equally important in the old and the new, and that's a fundamental principle. And none of these change. None of these change when you move into technology-based assessment. Feedback, the mode of feedback and the timeliness. The educational impact of how we're assessing. If you want people to be critical thinkers, to be creative, you need to set an assessment item that makes them think critically and create. You can't set them written paper exams if you want, or you can, but you might prefer to have one of the assessment types that we have called creative synthesis in our assessment types in the course profile, where they have to create an object which is relevant to the discipline. So if you want creativity, you want critical thinking, higher order skills, you have to match it with your assessment. Cost, feasibility, resource intensiveness and scalability. It's the doability of assessment. I think this might have just gone on. E-assessment adds the personalised learning. It's the opportunity in e-assessment, which is what Karen mentioned before, the opportunity to diversify what you do on an individual basis with the student much more readily than we can without technology. Peer and self-review, much more facilitated in technology than in a paper-based system. So, and this is something, when we did an analysis of our, the 23 assessment types that we have in the course profile, they were used very little, peer and self-assessment. We actually don't do a huge amount of it. Interactivity and engagement and flexibility. So they were the things that we thought e-assessment added, that the use of technology adds. We have a variety of processes in the middle, like marking and delivering and using rubrics and getting rubrics out to students, and they are all can be influenced by assessment, be part of the assessment. But they're delivery processes and marking processes as opposed to an assessment method. Analytics and data, and I was really pleased to see what Heidi was mentioning about the use of data and assessment data. That might come up maybe this afternoon or after lunch. Planning, assessment as for and of learning still stands. Blueprinting for content validity, mapping at the program level, fit with accreditation requirements and a variety of types of tasks. They're things that we would normally do, but they still apply in technology, sometimes in a slightly different way. And there must be, under purposes, a clear underpinning pedagogy. There's got to be a pedagogical reason to use the technology, not just using it because, gee, Second Life looks pretty, I think we'll do an assessment item in it, but not really knowing why you're doing it or what the student's expected to do. Okay, so you've got the copy of that in your packs. We're very happy to get feedback on that, so if you'd like to send us any thoughts, please send them to me, and we'll take them to the next meeting. The e-assessment working group, apart from trying to come to terms with what e-assessment was, is going on to develop a resource catalogue of all different technology-based assessment methodologies with a page summary for each saying, you know, what skills do I need, what kind of IT do I need, what kind of training might I need, how would I use this, and give me a link to see, let me see an example of it. So we're building that resource up, and after that we'll come out, once we've got that resource complete, we'd like to come out and engage more with the academic staff, develop more examples and discuss the assessment.